Hello, John.
Hi, Jean.
Hello. Hi, Jean.
Hey, Alex.
Hey.
Hi, Jean.
Hi.
My hair twin.
Hi, John Beaton.
Hello.
Wow, good to see you.
You too. Yes.
Hello and welcome, everybody. I will let people filter in, but I'm going to go ahead and mute us all so that we can get started. Here we go. Hello and welcome to today's Able Muse reading of April 17th, 2021. I'm Frank Osen, and I am honored to be hosting today because we'll be featuring readings by three wonderful talents, poets Catherine Chandler and Wendy Vidalesque, and author Hollis Seaman. First, I would like to introduce the man who has made this and untold other good things in the poetry world come about, Alex Pepple. Alex founded and edits Able Muse Journal and Able Muse Press, and also founded and directs the Erratosphere online workshop. His poetry and prose have been or will be published in Barrow Street, River Styx, American Arts Quarterly, Light, Think Journal, Euphony, Per Contra, Eclectica, Measure, and elsewhere. He edited the Able Muse Anthology, which was published by Able Muse Press in 2010. Alex, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you, Frank. It's very good to see all of you here today. And I'll say this is pretty much a special reading because of its historic reasons. Because Kathy was the very first author we published at Able Muse Press right after the anthology was released. And right on her heels came Wendy. So this is very special, two poets here reading here today. And then there's Hollis, who is the very first writer we published with her short story collections, Corporeality. So I hope this is going to be a very special and fun reading for all. And I can't wait to hear you all read. So thank you all for showing up. And Frank, take it away.
Okay, yes, thank you, Alex. If any of you do not have a subscription yet to the Able Muse Journal, I'd urge you to visit the website at ablemuse.com as soon as possible and subscribe. And there you may browse and purchase books by today's readers and many other authors and poets. I would like to do a few words about format before we get started. I'm going to mute everyone so we don't have any background noise. Introduce each reader individually before her reading. And you readers, please unmute yourselves as I'm introducing you. If not, I'll try and remember to unmute you for you. The microphone icon should be in the lower left of your screen. I invite all the participants to unmute themselves following each speaker's reading to offer applause. We'll hold questions until the end of the readings, though, when I hope we'll have time for a brief question and answer session. The order today will be as it was given to me in my invitation from Able Muse to host, and that is beginning with Catherine, and then Wendy, and finally Hollis. So first up, Catherine Chandler is an American translator and editor born in New York City and raised in Pennsylvania. She completed her graduate studies at McGill University in Montreal, where she's lectured in the Department of Languages and Translation for many years. Catherine is the author of 5 poetry collections, including Lines of Flight from Able Muse Press in 2011, which was shortlisted for the Poets Prize, and The Frangible Hour from University of Evansville Press in 2016, chosen by Dick Davis for the Richard Wilbur Award. She's the winner of the Howard Nemerov Sonnet Award, the Leslie Mellichamp Prize, 9-time nominee for the Pushcart Prize. Catherine is an unapologetic formalista whose work has been widely published in journals and anthologies in North America, Europe, and Australia. 3 of her poems were chosen by George Eliot Clark, Poet Laureate of Canada, for inclusion in the National Poetry Registry of the Library of Parliament. I had the pleasure of attending a reading of hers when she came to Los Angeles a few years ago and read at Beyond Baroque. And I am very much looking forward to hearing you again now, Catherine. Please take it away.
Thank you, Frank. And thanks to everyone who's attending this event today. It's an honor to have been invited to read with such outstanding writers as Wendy and Hollis. I wish to thank Alex again for his support and encouragement over these many years. 2021 marks 10 years since he published Lines of Flight. During the course of those years, I had the privilege of serving as moderator at Eratosphere's Metrical Poetry Deep End and to host, co-host, and judge several of the Sphere's sonnet bake-offs. The poems I'll read today are exclusively from Lines of Flight and from Able Muse Journal, and follow a theme of travel, something which my husband and I love to do, especially in Argentina and Uruguay, and which we miss, and perhaps as many of you do as well, in this time of the coronavirus pandemic. The first poem, This Dusky Ark, begins here in Canada. Although spring has finally arrived in my neck of the woods of Saint Lazare de Vaudreuil, this poem is a November poem. November in Canada, as opposed to November in my husband's country, Uruguay, where November is the loveliest month of their springtime. The title comes from a poem by Richard Wilbur, where he refers to life as, quote, this dusky arc of the grand tour which souls must take. The poem was published shortly after Lines of Flight in the winter 2011 edition of Able Muse Journal. This Dusky Arc. November at this latitude is stark. The woods a snarl of black and brown and gray. By 5 o'clock, the west's already dark. The pond begins to freeze along its edges as snow geese straggle in, then fly away, and redpolls huddle deeper in the hedges. Underfoot, the earth is cold and hard. As I walk up the road to get the mail, some bills and a belated birthday card, I spot a whitetail, but she disappears into the forest on a well-worn trail, oblivious to days and months and years. I'd follow gladly, but there's work to do, supper to cook and clothes to wash and dry, and words to string along on lines for you, my southern love, who never shall acclaim the imminence of winter or see why I give away my heart and keep my name. So now, on to New York City, where I was born. I remember reading this poem at an open mic at the Frost Farm Poetry Conference, when some of the Red Sox fans in the audience got a chuckle out of the final line. I was taken aback because I had written it as the most devastating line in the poem. Bottom of the ninth. Mid-afternoon, church over. Dad and I settled in the living room to read the Sunday paper with its stout supply of inserts. He supposed, and I agreed, there'd be no war. Advisors would advise. Nixon would trounce Kennedy. Of course, Luthuli never win the Nobel Prize. With Mazeroski's brilliant tour de force, undreamed of weeks away, Dad coolly aced the crossword as I scanned the comic strips, the fashion pages, and the book reviews. In time, this confidence would prove misplaced, as often happens with apprenticeships. We were so sure our Yankees couldn't lose. So now it's on to Pennsylvania, where I was raised in Wilkes-Barre. The next poem is Harrowing. There's a little epigraph from Seneca, which translated in English goes, "There is no smooth way from the earth to the stars." Harrowing for Pennsylvania. Her teeming, fertile acres may supply the world with barley, winter wheat, and rye. But there are other barren, untilled lands for reasons every farmer understands. It's best to let the bullets, blood, and bones lie undisturbed beneath the soil and stones, to let the buttercups and meadow grass blanket the savagery as seasons pass. Harvest time in Shanksville, nickel mines, and Gettysburg spills over county lines. No fences here to keep one out or in. No gleaners search for hair or teeth or skin. Yet constellations nightly sow their light on heaven's fallow fields of anthracite. On to France, where 20 years ago this month, I was visiting Lourdes. There we go. When in Lourdes, I lingered on a little bridge across the Gave de Pau, whose waters in the sweep of April coursed beneath it. At a loss for words, I scrutinized the crowd, the cheap boutiques, the bottles for domestic use, but still sought out the consecrated sites. My fragile faith becoming less diffuse, I prayed beside the grotto, walked the night's procession, visited the cold cachot, lit a candle, bought some rosary beads, beamed beatific for a day or so, then left for Paris on the train that speeds its passengers back to reality. My pilgrimage diminished by regrets, the miracles that were not meant to be, the plastic made in China, Bernadette. Now to a different hemisphere and to the country where I usually spend a third of every year, Uruguay. So the next poem, Poetisa, is part of a three-part poem, Shakespeare's Sisters, published in Able Muse Journal in the winter of 2017. Poetisa is the largely now abandoned Spanish term, which in English would translate as poetic. The implications of the patronizing term run through all three of the poems in the triptych. Maria Eugenia Vaz Ferreira is considered one of the most brilliant Latin American poets. So, Poetisa, in memory of Maria Eugenia Vaz Ferreira, Uruguayan poet, 1875, 1924. The mild Pampeiro wafts a balm of pine and eucalyptus through the spindrift air. She draws the velvet curtains as each sign of life appears. Shadow fish clouds tear the sky apart. A lone hornero peeps. a Venteveo call. Then all too soon, though now it seems to her the whole world sleeps unmindful of a waning austral moon, the customary rough, pragmatic clamor of trams and city workmen will dispel beatitude with bugle honk and hammer, while lifting like a vampire pipistrelle, a daring line takes off for distant caves as she pours coffee, butters toast, behaves. Okay, so now Argentina. I love that country. Over the years, we've traveled as far north as the Cataratas de Iguazu, to the southernmost city of Ushuaia, to Mendoza, Córdoba, Calafate, northern and southern Patagonia, Mar del Plata, and of course, Buenos Aires. But the place I love the most is our friend's farm, Pueblitos, on the Pampas, around 250 kilometers southwest of Buenos Aires, near the towns of Saladillo and 25 de Mayo. The next poem, Prayer on the Pampas, is a haibun inspired by morning, noon, evening, and night at Pueblitos. Prayer on the Pampas. Pueblitos, a million miles from Buenos Aires. Slivers of gold shimmer through the tall wooden shutters onto the bedsheet. We are the dust motes riding on the morning light, wayward iotas. A stonefish arcs at each cardinal point on the 100-year-old fountain. The sundial's shadow is past noon. Torpor. Cool water flashes. We sit and sip tereré. A stonefly flits by. Behind the soya fields and cow pastures, the evening sky bleeds orange into purple. Jasmine and eucalyptus hues. Looking to the west, she whispers a secret wish, a green granada. Nyakurutu begins his elegy. Wind chimes clink, the swirl of the earth palpable. Stars spill, Polaris swallowed by latitude. She guides me to Cook's. We'll pilgrimage to Luján when the sun rises. I'll end my reading with travel to inspirational poetic lands, a poem about writing poetry and the often misunderstood poetic mindset. It's dedicated to Manon Chaland, a girl I met at a long ago assembly line job. Over 45 years later, I did find her on Facebook and sent her the poem that she loves. Lines for Manon, wherever I may find her. The shop floor foreman hasn't got a clue to where the new employee's coming from. The incense and the ice of Xanadu, the flame and fury of Byzantine. He knows for sure she doesn't give a shit about the piecework in her packing crate. She checks the clock. At 5, she's first to split. It's no damn wonder that she can't make rate. He's noticed too, the woman can be seen each morning scribbling in a steno pad, an island in a boisterous canteen. Whatever's eating her, she's got it bad. He's right. Her day job's pretty hard to take with grace and grit and she won't last too long, demanding honeydew on coffee break for no good reason, bursting into song. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
That was a bravura
Wonderful.
world tour.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it seemed to have that little theme that came out of it.
Thank you again. Our next reader is Wendy Vidalesque, and Wendy lives in a small agricultural town on the western slope of the Colorado Rockies. Her work appears in the Best American Poetry, American Life in Poetry, Hudson Review, Hopkins Review, and the New York Times, Poetry, Dark Horse, and other venues. In the introduction to her first book, MacArthur finalist A.E. Stalling says of her work, "What these poems lack in length, they make up for in depth, optical and aural illusion, tricking us into epiphanies of perception." Timothy Green, editor of Rattle, says, "Vidalesque is one of the few poets I can still read at length and purely for pleasure. Her work is playfully wise, sharp-tongued, and always surprising." Vidalesque's books are available from Able Muse Press and Exot Books. And I would only add to what Alicia and Tim Green said by saying that I find her to be a virtuoso of concision and wit and wordplay. And I always read her with more than just pleasure, but profound pleasure. Wendy, you're up.
Oh, thank you so much, Frank. What a nice introduction. Thank you so much, Alex. It's so good to do this. You've done so much for poetry and in service of poetry, and so much to support my voice in this great conversation we call poetry. And it's just a delight to be here. Catherine, I love this perfectly iambic line. She knows for sure she doesn't give a shit. Come on, so good. I dedicate these words to all the beautiful lovers whose gentle fingers turned to claw at one another. I have left these notes for the ordinary Joe who forked the other road only to find his father. I have sung for the woman stubborn as a pile of bricks, who in her zeal to live has forgotten to forgive. I am sister to those half broken and half whole, given to the mead, sweating in the sheets, or raking up the leaves of joyousness and sorrow. I am counting on those for whom the bell tolls, who've settled near the river, having failed to walk on water. That was the first poem from Nevertheless, my first book with Alex and Able Muse. So I'm coming to you in springtime in Western Colorado, which is otherwise known as the season of the wind, or in recent years, we call it the season or the coming of the fires, really. Catherine did a wonderful travelogue in verse. I'm going to sort of introduce you to this Western Colorado world. I think I can show you. No, can't get a shot out the window. But so we live at the base of a mountain. It's the longest flat top mountain, I think, in the world, or at least in the continent. And it is sort of a collection of weather that happens here. We get a lot of wonderful thunderstorms and lightning shows. And this area was once an ancient seaway, was later inhabited by Allosaurus and Tyrannosaurus and other species of prehistoric creatures, and later still was traveled extensively by the Anasazi, the Chiricahua, the Ute, and the Hopi Indians, and today is known as the Confluence, where the Gunnison and Colorado rivers join, and the fruit and wine capital of Colorado lies nestled. So a little poem to introduce you to that Grand Mesa, otherwise known to Native tribes, I think, as Thunder Mountain. Said the potter on Thunder Mountain, "For details and a touch of texture, less is more. For soils rich in soul or atmosphere, a hint of a tap on the shoulder will do. Where clumsy fingers are at their best, they don't add to an already wretched mess." That's from the potter. This one's called The Spare. The stark and the spare and strands of windswept hair are always in abundance on the desert air. This next one is a little quote from somebody many of you will know, Callie Conan Davis or Chrissy. The quote is, "The course of evolution is the story of the soul. We begin with the chameleon's eye, or an endless war, or a little girl, or a single cell, or an old thought floating about in a murky and primordial world. Let us begin again. A murky and primordial world is nonetheless wrought with stars, turns the old chameleon's eye, emboldens the soul floating about in a murky and primordial world. Trapped like a fish, the unrelenting heart insists, whether you are thrashing about, floating inland, or fresh as a clam in a freshwater pool, it hardly matters why or when. Let us begin again." And on that same theme, old as dirt. I'm old as dirt and wholly new. Again, I've fallen under the influence of the moon, though some would say I misconstrue. This one's kind of a new one. It's called High Desert Witch. It was hot and late in the morning when a silent little Kevorkian arrived in the form of a scorpion. I couldn't help but think, how like a small accordion, how like the pale historian, this dusty desert champion, this crawling valedictorian, though startling, is not so very alien. I couldn't help but think this lost and lonely veteran, this one who could be anyone, this delicate Kevorkian has no business in my room, and slowly, very carefully went to fetch my broom. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I found myself spending way too much time on social media, and subsequently found myself writing a few lyrical observations on the subject. This one's called About Those Interwebs. About those interwebs, it could be said, nuance is dead. Irony is on oxygen. Satire is redundant, but the pun soldiers on. Everybody beeps. Everybody beeps, bleats and chews, sleeps, tweets and coos, pokes, pecks and coos, diminishes and looms in our tossing blue canoes. And then one more on that subject. It's a little one called Sticks and Sky. I think this one appeared in Rattle. Little Villanelle. I am steeped in the sticks and stuck on the sky. The sky is wider than a Twitter feed. Unplug for a spell and you'll understand why. To overfeed is to sleep with a capital Y. The sparrow prefers a world as wide and treed. I am steeped in the sticks and stuck on the sky and drawn to the root where the river runs dry. The sound of the rain is a scattering seed. Unplug for a spell and you'll understand why what you feed is the same as what you buy. We've been given the frontal lobe and the slow bleed. I am steeped in the sticks and stuck on the sky. A crescent moon and the stars are the 4th of July. The sparrow prefers an action to a creed. Unplug for a spell and you'll understand why it's good to be found outside the public eye. To learn the difference between word and deed. I'm steeped in the sticks and stuck on the sky. Unplug for a spell and you'll understand why. And I'm going to close on a little poem that's inspired by this wonderful landscape and the world that surrounds us. It's called Ode to the Slow. One of the things I love about desert life is just the pace. We're slower, and I tend to do better in a slow sort of rhythm. I have an affinity for ghosts, and so dwelling as we ghostly do with the caw and the screech and the pinion moon, where the freeze and the thaw and the witness are together alive and together entombed, here on the edge of a high desert world, where all is stone and all is sky, here where an ancient sea surged forth and slowly died, here where the ruins and the peaks have changed their names to butte and bluff, here where the Ute had slowed their feet and harvested the pinon seed, here where the reach of the canyon ends or begins or infers, like knowledge, it's always a rapture or a bit of a blur. We could soar on the wing or fall in. Here where the rolling stone knows the world is only made of sand and the arc is the mark of the fallen star. Here where the ghosts and the slopes are wan and empty of virtue and of sin, I lower a bridge and watch the morning fog roll in. Thank you all so much.
Nice, very nice.
Thank you.
Bravo,
Thank
Wendy.
you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Very nice.
Terrific.
Well, we told you she was a master of surprise. Bravo, Wendy.
Thanks, Frank.
Our next reader is Hollis Seaman, who lives in Kinderhook, New York, and teaches for the MFA in Creative Writing program of Fairfield University in Fairfield, Connecticut. She is the author of a short story collection, Corporeality, from Able Muse Press in 2013, a gold medal winner in the 2014 Independent Publishers Awards. Her story, Death is the New Sleep, won an Al Blanchard Award for short crime fiction. Her story, It's Never Just the Wind, appears in the May-June 2018 edition of Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. Hollis is also the author of a young adult novel, Somebody Up There Hates You, from Algonquin Young Readers, which was named a 2014 Best Book for Young Adults by the American Library Association and received star reviews from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly. Somebody Up There Hates You has been translated into 5 languages and published in French, German, Spanish, Portuguese, Polish, and Canadian editions. Hollis has published a previous collection of stories, Bodywork, from Spring Harbor Press in 2000, and a mystery novel, Flesh, from Avocet Press in 2005. Her short stories have appeared in Ellery Queen, Mystery Magazine, Bellevue Literary Review, Fiction International, the Greensboro Review, the Nebraska Review, Persimmon Tree, the Chicago Review, and many other journals. Her work has been included in anthologies such as The Best of the Bellevue Literary Review and Celestial Electric Set from Emery's Foundation, 2008, and The Strange History of Suzanne LaFlèche and Other Stories of Women and Fatness from the Feminist Press, 2003. She is a recipient of a New York Foundation for the Arts Fiction Fellowship. And as a mystery buff, I am greatly anticipating your reading. Hollis, you are on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Frank, for that introduction. And again, I want to add my thanks to Alex for all the wonderful work he's done. It was a huge honor to be one of the first short story writers with Able Muse Press. And I also want to thank Kathy and Wendy for the wonderful poetry. Thank you so much. I'm going to read a story that was published in Corporeality. It was originally published in Persimmon Tree, which is an online journal. This story was born of an assignment I gave to a graduate writing class when I was teaching at the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York. And that assignment had many components. I'll be happy to talk about it later, but you don't need to hear about it. But I tried to do the assignments I gave my students. And so this story was born from that, but mostly it was born from, I think now, I realize that I've always had this interest in the moments in life, which are many, where things seem to be in a really precarious balance. And I'm really interested in the moment when that slips and things tip. And suddenly and dramatically things go awry. And I think that many of my stories are exactly set in and around that moment when chaos begins to ensue out of what seemed to be ordinary. And also for obvious reasons, I'm kind of interested these days in the process of aging. And that's also a time when things seem to suddenly, at least they seem to be suddenly go awry and unexpectedly. So I've cut the story a little bit to fit the time. So all of that highfalutin stuff aside, it's really a story about cats. And the name of the story is The Trojan Cat, a drama in 3 acts. Act 1. The first dead mouse could have been an accident. You thought so. Anyone would have thought so. Innocent mouse dead on the deck, tiny and softly gray, white-tummied, no obvious sign of blood. You pick it up by its tail and throw it into the yard of the disgusting man across the street. The pile of 3 mice is more suspicious. No, on closer inspection, there are 2 mice and something related, but not quite, a vole, whatever. 3 rodents do not decide to die together, all for one and one for all, in a neat little pyramidal heap on your front deck. And you can't just swing them by their stiff little tails, sailing them off across the street for 2 reasons. Walt, the horrible old man, is home out mowing his grass for the 4th time in one afternoon, never mind that it is mid-October and the grass is no longer growing. Walt is a drunk, a total nutcase. You don't want to draw his attention. Second, not quite a mouse has no tail, only a tiny stumpy thing you refuse to touch. So this is work that requires a shovel. When you go to the garage to get the shovel, you meet the likely sculptor of dead rodent cairns, a dark striped, ragged, lynx-eared cat whose head is far too big for his scrawny body. He stares at you imperiously, expecting gratitude. The mice he might have eaten have instead come to you in some sort of sacred kitty ritual of gifting. You lean on the shovel and gaze into the cat's yellow eyes. You have resisted all these years. You have vowed not to become the pathetic old woman with 100 cats. You live alone. You rarely speak to neighbors. You understand this, the perfect candidate for this exact kind of craziness. but not quite. Inside your tiny house sits your savior, your old dog, Maggie. She is blind and she is deaf and she limps, and she would not tolerate cats in her house. End of discussion. Maggie's been with you for 17 years. You bend and rub a line down the head and back of the striped cat, smoothing back his rough fur, feeling the healed scars that pock his skin. Phooey on you, buddy, you tell him, you can't catch me. Leaves fall and days darken, and the striped cat leaves nightly offerings. Sparrow, mouse, chipmunk, bat. You can't help but chuckle. You buy 3 cans of cat food, generic store brand, and feed him on the deck. You name him in what you consider a fit of brilliance, Oscar the Wild. Long ago, you read books by the dozens before your eyes grew dim. Act 2. When the first real snow blows in, late November, it covers the deck and the latest tiny corpse with white. You sit in your chair looking out into the storm. On your lap, you hold Maggie. Well, what remains? A coffee can of Maggie's ashes. She was, you know, the last dog you will ever own. To rescue another from the shelter, well, even that would be unfair at this stage of the game. The house trembles with winter, the wind outside, the rattle of the old furnace. You keep it set very low. The house never heats to more than 56 degrees. Oil is expensive and the house is full of drafts. The coffee can feels like ice in your hands. That night, when the storm has piled drifts around the foundation of your house, Oscar the Wild comes to the window, yellow eyes circled in frost, whiskers stiff with rime. He is standing in the snow-packed window box, his mouth open in a silent mew. Yes, you open the door. Bring him in. He settles on the one heating vent in the living room. He curls there, soaking up all the warmth. The room grows even colder. When you pick him up and bring him into your lap, it is like holding onto heat itself. Your aching fingers grow supple when you plunge them deep inside his fur. Inside there, your hands feel young. By December, you have 2 more cats. One, a small gray tabby female you call Kitty. The other, a brilliant orange, is Snazzle. The house comes alive with their running and leaping and pouncing. You laugh quite often now. You smile even at the man across the street who may be just as lonely as yourself, as you used to be. You wave at him, speak a jaunty hello. There is now a place in your heart for pity. February. There are the smallest signs of spring just beyond the deck. No more mouse offerings are left. They have done their work. The tiniest, the earliest of the crocuses you planted 40 falls ago are up. The yellow and the white, fragile as dragonfly wings. The big sturdy purples come later. You're looking forward to that. You open the front window just a bit. You sniff the fresh air, damp and silky. It reminds you that the air inside your house is ripe with cat. The cardboard boxes you line with shredded newspapers for litter, 3 such boxes at last count, tend to overflow. The cat food in the 6 bowls sometimes hardens and remains there, a dark crust. But the house is so alive. Kitty and Bear and Moose and Max and Mousie and Sunny and Carmelita and Honey and Amara and Tom and Bill and Lupin and Sadie and Fuzzle and the Bambino are so full of energy. Sometimes Oscar, the patriarch, hisses at them all and slides under the bed in a fit of pique. But you can always jolly him out with a special treat or a long rub. He is, you whisper in his ear, your favorite still. You're kept awake nights by the flea bites on your ankles and the hissing of the fights. You lie in the dark, scratch and listen. This watchful sleeplessness seems familiar. It's almost like having babies in the house again. No, not babies, teenagers. Yes, quarreling, troublesome, late-night teenagers back from dark doings of their own, sending waves of beer and sweat up and down the hall. You always liked those frantic, noisy nights, as you like these. Honey and Mousy and Kitty and Snazzle are growing wide and broody. Things are afoot. Act 3. Snaz is the first to give birth on the end of your bed early March. You sit up all night with her, not touching, just watching. She needs no help. She's done this all before. By dawn, there are 5 damp, blind kittens mewling and pushing at Snazzle's belly. Her eyes are closed, her labor over. You lean over the little nest she has kneaded in the covers. You breathe deep, deep. The smell is indescribable. It catches in your throat, brings tears to your eyes. It is salt, it is blood, it is birth. It is life at last come into your house once again. In your dry breasts, you feel again the tingling, the imminent flow of your milk letting down. You are perfectly sane. You know there is no milk, but you feel it just the same. The first week of March, suddenly there's a late blizzard, snowdrifts sculpted into white waves. Inside, there are 30-odd kittens and 2 more adults. You don't remember where they all came from, cannot recall letting them all in. You can't keep up with the naming. You sometimes step in piles of cat shit heaped in unexpected places. You run out of cat food, and there is angry yowling. When the snow subsides, you walk to Stewart's for more. You see how people at the counter wrinkle their noses when you pay. You sniff it yourself on the walk home. If you stink of cat piss, you can't smell it. 2 days later, you find 3 dead kittens in a closet, all gray, all stiff and cold, eyes sealed shut, pink tongues protruding. You don't know who they belong to, but you mourn them anyway. You hold each tiny body tenderly in your palm before tucking it away in the garbage. Once or twice the phone rings, and its particular ring sounds official. Sounds like someone barging in. You don't answer. A few peaceful days go by. The last of the hard-crusted snow swirls away in rain showers. The purple crocuses have come up and begun to unfurl, lovely. There's sunshine, a hint of warmth. Maybe things will remain as they are if you stay very still and very watchful. You tuck your face into Oscar's neck and breathe his still wild smell. Snazzle pats you with a gentle paw. One day, a woman with a clipboard comes to the front door and knocks loudly. You know that Walt, that disgusting man, has called someone, the bastard. You do not answer the knocking. You wait. The house is full of warmth and energy. The kittens romp and play, batting and running and climbing. The elders sleep in squares of sunlight, their perfect paws twitching gently. The cats are dreaming elegant dreams. It is a house of joy. How will you explain that to people with clipboards? How can they understand this glorious gift that's come to you so late in life, so unexpected, so precious? How will you survive when they take it all away? You hold Oscar on your lap. Will they leave you one? Please, please. Will they leave Oscar to purr and knead on your lap? Please, God, let them leave just one. You hear the knock again, louder, pounding, voices calling, demanding to be let in. You know they will not go away, will never leave you in peace. You look at the calendar you've tacked to the wall. You will remember this date. You have to laugh. The Ides. It is the Ides. You lean into the warmth of fur and whisper, "Et tu, Brute?" Oscar the Wild leaps from your lap, heading for the door. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Hollis.
Very nice.
And now, if any of you have questions of any of our readers, I invite you to speak up.
Hollis, I was really impressed with a prose writer who uses rhyme so much. Is that intentional?
It may not be intentional when it first happens, but it gets to be as you revise and, you know, polish things up. And as I said, I cut this story a bit for time, and then I had a lot of fun with it. And then it was a lot. Some of it was playing with the rhythms and adding the names of every new cat in the family and, you know, doing that sort of thing. But I do love the sounds of words, and I do like rhythm.
It's very clear in your writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Anyone else with a question for any of our readers today? Comments? Chat. I'm seeing lots of plaudits in the comment section and lots of compliments, but I'm not seeing any questions from anyone. So, Alex, would you like to make a few concluding comments?
Certainly, Frank. Well, this was a very enjoyable session, and thank you all for the very intelligent and, you know, insightful reading from Wendy, from Catherine, and from Hollis. So I'm glad you all showed up here this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all in our next event. And meanwhile, as Frank had mentioned earlier, I will invite you all to subscribe to Able Muse at ablemuse.com, and also maybe sign up for our newsletter, and so you can get announcements of our future events. So with that, it was a pleasure again to have you all here. And I should have the video of this reading maybe in the next couple of days, and I'll inform everyone when that occurs. So thank you, and thank you, Frank, for doing a superb hosting job with this.
Thank you to each of our readers, and thank you, Alex. Actually, I did get a chance to look at the comments a bit closer while you were speaking, and Haley Lighthouser had a request for anybody who wanted to show a favorite piece of art in their room. So if anybody is equipped to do that, I invite you to do so. Haley? Ah!
It's
Why am I
Oscar.
not surprised?
No longer with us, but
Yeah.
I have his portrait.
Oh,
Good.
very sweet. All right, with that, I am going to conclude today's reading.
Wendy has something to show.
What?
Wendy has something to show.
I've got a little bookworm. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, you can see that.
A friend of mine made that. I thought that would be appropriate.
Mm.
Very nice. Any other ones? Anyone? All right, I'm just going to do my own. This is my autographed letter from Wallace Stevens. I mean, not to me, obviously. I was 1 year old when he died, but anyway, that's my little poetry museum there in the corner. And I treasure this letter because he's been asked to do a poetry reading at a university in New York. And he says, I don't care about any of the arrangements. All I know is that I will want a martini the minute I enter your house. So, anyone else?
I have a question for Hollis. And hi, Hollis.
Hello, Abby. Abby is a former student from Fairfield University and a wonderful, wonderful writer.
Oh,
Abby, so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. And I adored all three readings. So thank you so much. This was very, very special today. I'm trying to carve out, what Julia Cameron calls artist dates. So this was my first artist date in a while. I'm very grateful. Hollis, I was wondering, I love the idea in fiction from starting in the middle, right? And when you talk about the precarious moment when something goes awry and getting to the chaos, I'm curious about your process. Do you find that you can get to the marrow of the chaos in revision? Or do you really, at the beginning of thinking about long form fiction or a short story, is it instinctive that you know, I'm on the cusp of it here, I can capture this? Or do you find that you end up kind of hacking off a good portion of the content later? I just find that that's a struggle for me I have in my writing, is getting to that chaos from the beginning, because that's what's so captivating about your work.
Oh, that's quite a question. I guess I would have to say chaos comes naturally to me. in the imaginative world, I mean, I live a pretty orderly and certainly over the past year and a half, very routine sort of life of, in my little tiny house with nothing else. But in story world, in the moment of kind of loss of control, whether someone decides to do it or not, or is, taken in by the Trojan cat, that just seems to appear. And I don't plan a plot of a story ever from when I start, but so much of it is discovered, like you said, in revision. I write a first draft very quickly. I usually have to fill in more than cut out, but it's in the filling in where I start to realize that there's a chance for some repetition, or there's a chance for some imagery in Act 2 that will echo something in Act 1. And so that it is, a lot of that happens in revision, because I write a draft quickly because I don't know what's going to happen and I want to. I want to kind of find out. And so the first draft is quick, and then it goes on from there, which is more for me a process of building up than taking out, if that makes any sense to people. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Mark Stone. When my son was in elementary school, he studied the poem The Raven, and he drew this drawing of a raven, which I've kept ever. That's my artwork for the day.
Very good. Very nice. Well, if there's nothing further on that note, I shall...
Melissa has something to show. Melissa, are you still here? Melissa? I guess she's gone.
Oh, there she is.
Oh. Melissa, you have to enable your video.
Can you not unmute with the video off? I didn't know that.
Okay. You're on.
Okay.
I'm here.
Mm-hmm. You have something to show?
I did. I was showing you. I'll try one more time. Wait a minute. I'm gonna unplug. I'm lucky enough to have art in here by both of my grandparents, who are both painters. And here's a painting by my maternal grandmother. I don't know if you can see that so well.
Yes, you can see.
Denise Angolia. And then here's one. This is really fun because I have the painting by my grandfather. This is really more of a sketch almost. but I happen to have, and I was amazed when my mother produced the bottle, the decanter that's in the painting. I know, isn't that fun? So I've got that in here along with my pandemic hoard of groceries, but I'm always really worried that, speaking of Trojan cats, one of my cats will get in here and knock it off, and yeah, but so far so good. So thank you for the opportunity to show off the grandparents.
Thank you.
I'd like to show one more, may I show one more thing?
Sure.
This is going to embarrass you, Jean, so get ready. This is not so much a piece of visual art as it is one of the most wonderful books you'll ever read about art, called Renato, by my dear friend and teacher, Jean Mirabelli, who is here today. And Renato is a painter, and this is a compilation of 3 novels which focus on him. And so while I had this opportunity, I just wanted to say thank you to Jean, who was one of my teachers long ago and has remained so. Thanks, Jean. I knew it would embarrass him.
I'm sorry for everybody else, but thank you very much, Hollis. I apologize. I think I'll go now.
Well, Alex, I'm spooked because I don't see these people if they're asking to make a comment. So I'm going to let you conclude.
No, I was reading the chat. That's where I found all that. So anyway, if there's nothing else, Frank, he can close the meeting.
All right.
So it looks like that's about it for today. And again, thank you all for this wonderful evening. And thank you to all our readers, Kathy, Wendy, and Hollis. And thank you again, Frank. And
Thank you all.
See you all again next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Frank.
Sure.
Thank you.